Well, good evening, friends. And I do expect a big woo from this, but happy International Women's Day. All right. That'll do, but we're going to do that again later, and I expect a little bit more. Well, so thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm going to give folks a couple of minutes to get centered and take a deep breath, get ready to explore this fantastic content that we're about to provide for you. My name is Lauren Conaway. For those of you who don't know me, I am founder and CEO of Innovate Her KC. We are a 6,000 plus leadership community here in the Kansas City area. We serve women and individuals of marginalized gender experience. We have a focus and a lens on inclusion, belonging, and low barrier to entry. So those are our foundational ethics, and we build our programming and our championship and our support of our members around that. We have been very, very fortunate to partner with Keystone Collabs on this Keystone Sessions series. So I'm going to give a shout out to Kevin in the back. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much to Zeke and Eric for capturing the moments so beautifully. We're very, very grateful. And who provided the food tonight? Because that was incredible. I need to know. Okay, well, they did good work. But so when we were talking about, we do these every other month, and when we were talking about topics, Kevin and I kind of honed in on sports, because some of you may know, but the Big 12 Conference, Women's Basketball Conference, is here in Kansas City, and we love women's sports, and we love celebrating the whole woman. That includes the physicality of being a woman. So we wanted to talk about sports, but we wanted to do so through a slightly different lens. And so I'm going to tell you how very, very honored I am to have this woman sitting right next to me. Some of you may have heard the name Katherine Holland. Others of you, maybe you haven't, and that's okay. But I'm going to tell you that Katherine is responsible. She's going to be very clear with you and tell you that it wasn't just me, and that's true. But she has led some pretty impressive initiatives for the Kansas City area. And so really quickly, I'm just going to ask you, shout it out. And I am asking for audience participation. Don't hate me. There's no pressure. But talk about some of the big wins that Kansas City has experienced recently. And I'll give you an example. Hey, we just got a new airport. Super Bowl. That's a great one. What else we got? Come on. Hey, there you go. What else? World Cup. So you just named two things that Katherine and her team are responsible for bringing to the Kansas City area. So how about we get a round of applause for this amazing woman?
Again, not to be too nitpicky, but technically three, because our office actually plans the parade, the Super Bowl parade. So again, it's neither here nor there, but just want to be clear.
Testing. Hey, that sounds like that works. Okay, great. Well, so absolutely nitpick, because that's what we're here to do. We want to hear about your story. So that's actually going to be my first question to you. As someone who, oh man, you've been doing some really cool stuff, but talk to us about your start. Tell us about your journey.
Sure. I was born and raised in Kansas City. So I grew up here. I went to Pembroke Hill. I was a lifer from pre-kindergarten all through 12th grade, which was an incredible experience. But I was kind of eager to sort of get out of Kansas City for a little while. I was a 3-sport varsity athlete at Pembroke from freshman year through senior year. So I had some opportunities and actually ended up playing soccer at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. So I went east. I was like, I loved Kansas City, but I'd been here for a while and it was feeling a little bit small. So I went to the East Coast, and then when I graduated, I moved to New York City right out of college. So I actually moved a month to the day before 9/11, which was quite an experience. I remember my mom, when the phones got back up and running, I remember my mom saying, there's an Amtrak train that goes straight from Penn Station to Union Station, and we can pick you up if you decide that this is not what you want to do. But, I think they had also instilled in me a little bit of a grit, and I was like, I'm not leaving New York. I'm going to stay and see if I can make this work. So ended up living in New York City for 12 years, was lucky enough to sort of get embedded into the sports and entertainment sponsorship marketing world, started at a small agency where I was doing marketing and promotions for Broadway shows, then ended up jumping to a much bigger global agency where I was managing sports and entertainment sponsorships for American Express, the credit card company. So I did that for some time in New York City. I got my MBA part-time while I was there. Again, that company was generous enough to support their employees by underwriting 75% of their tuition costs for master's programs, which was just an incredible opportunity that I was lucky to take advantage of. Was at that global agency for a long time. And then we got the news that JP Morgan Chase wanted to get in the sponsorship game in a really big way in their own backyard in New York City. And they ended up making an offer. One of the partnerships that I managed was American Express's partnership with the Madison Square Garden company. It was one of their oldest partnerships, fully integrated, so on and so forth. But Chase has much bigger buying power than American Express. And they came in and basically offered, at the time, I think Amex was paying $7 million a year for that sponsorship, and Chase came in and offered $40 million a year for 12 years with a large escalator built in. So
that's quite a jump.
It was quite a jump. I don't blame the Garden for walking away from their existing partnership, but I was really bummed because I loved managing that partnership. And also was very surprised when Madison Square Garden reached out to me about coming over to the property side and building the team internally that would manage that JP Morgan Chase partnership, which I think at the time was the largest sports and entertainment sponsorship not tied to naming rights. Obviously, the Garden they're never going to sell naming rights. It's Madison Square Garden. It's forever going to be Madison Square Garden.
I got to tell you, like, having the T-Mobile Center situated, like, I still call it Sprint Center. So I'm a little jealous. I'm like, can we just stay? Like, and I know that y'all call it, what is it, Sandstone? We are still calling it Sandstone, right? For sure. I'm not originally from here, and people were like, "It's Sandstone." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's hard. It's hard.
So I'm a little jealous of that.
Well, even as much as I work with the Chiefs, I really had to train myself to say GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium, and they scolded me a few times when I, didn't make that clear distinction about their sponsor, but. Anyway, so I know this is going on, but I took that opportunity. It was an incredible opportunity to move to the property side of that sports and entertainment sponsorship marketing world. Ended up managing the Madison Square Garden company's partnership with both JP Morgan Chase and Visa. Chase ended up passing through some assets that they bought. I think maybe they realized that they bit off more than they could chew. They bought the farm and then couldn't actually run it. And then, so I was managing Chase and Visa, and then actually was recruited by Visa to come out to San Francisco and help them create a card product that was meant to directly compete with the American Express Platinum card. And it was very much rooted in sports and entertainment access. So I went out to San Francisco for a few years, realized pretty quickly the West Coast for me was a great place to visit, but I did not love living there. So really I had in my head to make my way back to New York City, not even Kansas City. I took some time to travel, which was an incredible opportunity. I traveled for about 6 months before coming back to Kansas City and trying to use this as a home base to get back to New York. And actually my parents were the ones sort of, and Eileen will appreciate this, she knows my parents pretty well, but they said Kansas City is a very, very different place than when you left when you were 18 to go to college. Maybe you should think about reconnecting with some people here, and maybe you'll want to stay in Kansas City. And I did. I took their advice. So my mom reminds me daily that she is the reason that I am back in Kansas City.
Now you know that you're going to have to live with that for the rest of her life,
daily,
right?
I'm not kidding, daily.
Yeah.
But I connected with Kathy Nelson and Brenda Tinnen, who at the time was general manager and vice president at Sprint Center. And they knew that they were going to win the opportunity to host the 2017 U.S. Figure Skating Championships. And they needed a executive director in place to manage that project. And for me, it was the perfect opportunity to be back in Kansas City for a year. The project was January to January. And it gave me a chance to embed myself back here, like really experience Kansas City as an adult and as a professional person, to see if it's something that I wanted to if a place I wanted to stay. And obviously I'm sitting here.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I might know what your answer is going to be, but do you feel like she was right that Kansas City had grown beyond what you thought it might be?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think it cannot be discounted, all of the innovation and the forward thinking that has happened in Kansas City over the past, let's say 20 plus years, right? The revitalization of downtown, the construction of T-Mobile Center, Kauffman Center, the streetcar. I mean, when I was growing up here, I would go down to the music hall probably once a year to see the Nutcracker, and that was it, right? Now you have the Crossroads District, and that it just took a lot of like forward-thinking people to even get us to the point where we are able to bid on things like the NFL Draft and the World Cup. Without that sort of progress, we just wouldn't be in this position. So they were absolutely right. It was very, very different.
So I think what I'm hearing you say, like, progress begets progress, right?
Yes.
And so it becomes kind of an exponential sort of effect where, once somebody invests, it becomes easier for others to see that roadmap of what investment could look like. And then it becomes easier to invest. So is that what you have found? Like, talk to us. Actually, you know what? I'm going to back up the truck. I have like 8 million questions that I want to ask Katherine, but I have an order. So what I actually want to ask you, you're here in Kansas City, and you are now tasked with attracting attention for us as a city on a national scale, right? Global, really. So talk to us about your thought process around that. Like, what were you thinking? And then what were your first forays into action to accomplish your goal?
I really feel that I was able to take what I learned on both coasts. And the irony being, I sort of was a little snobby when I came back. I was like, there's no way I'm going to find a job as big as what I did on the coast in Kansas City. And I'm like about to embark on a sort of scary job of planning the World Cup. But I think that I was able to take what I learned in on the coast and also working for marketing agencies, right? Like big marketing agencies, and sort of advise on how we as a city could level up, right? And hit outside of our weight class. A lot of people keep talking about that. Where Kansas City's constantly punching outside of our weight class. But I think there's also, everybody who lives here knows how incredible it is and how accessible it is and how much opportunity has been created. So I think I was just able to sort of literally revel in the success of my hometown and package it really nicely. And, at one point there was conversation about just submitting like a Word document to the NFL for consideration for our bid to host the draft. And I was like, we cannot submit a Word document to the NFL. Like, we have to pitch Kansas City because I know the room that this is going to be evaluated in. And it's frankly a bunch of white male executives sitting around the table who probably haven't spent a great deal of time out of Manhattan. And we need to like show them Kansas City in a different way and celebrate all of, frankly, from an NFL draft perspective, the football history, the heritage, lean in on the Hunt family and how integral they have been on the sport of football and the sport of soccer. And so what we produced was just different than what we had submitted as a city before. And it was just a little elevated but it was reflective of where Kansas City had come. It was reflective of that. Maybe in the past, a Word document would have been sufficient or would have been representative of Kansas City. That is not where we are right now. We are much.
Oh, we're capable of so much more.
Much
Who out here
that.
believes that can't yet? All right. I like seeing hands. There you go. Excellent. Would really have liked to hear a lot of woos, but I'll take it. Well, so it's really interesting. So I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually not originally from here. I'm originally from St. Louis. It's just across the state. It is a whole different world.
What high school did you go to?
Shut the front door.
My mom's from St. Louis.
Did she just ask me that question? I miss hearing that question.
Yeah.
I went to Parkway West High School. That means absolutely nothing in this room, but I do freak out when people ask me that question.
Yeah.
At any rate, so one of the things that I have learned or observed about Kansas City displays more civic pride while at the same time having the most stunning inferiority complex as a city that I have ever experienced in my life. And this is coming, I have fallen in love with Kansas City. Please do not send me back to St. Louis. It is a desolate place for me. And I love it here. But it's so interesting. Like we wear our logos in Kansas City emblazoned across our chest and on all of our apparel, and we're so proud to be from here. And when I first moved here, I would be like, yeah, I just moved here from St. Louis. And when invariably I heard the response, why? So many times.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea how many people did not understand what was appealing about this beautiful city that we are blessed to inhabit. And so one of the things I feel, I'm gonna make an assumption here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel as though one of the things that you kind of have to work against is people outside of Kansas City feel that way as well. We're flyover country.
Yep.
You know, we are very easily ignored when you look at us in the scope of the coasts, I guess, or some of those more exciting cities. And so do you feel like part of your job has been to work through that?
Absolutely. And I would say we were easily ignored. I think that ship has sailed. We are now on the global stage, right? Across the board. Sports, the catalyst, but that's the opportunity that's presented for all of the other business sectors is incredible as well, right? So, but yeah, I mean, we had to showcase Kansas City differently in order to spark interest, right? And NFL draft was a start that helped us, like you said, sort of progress begets progress. So being awarded the NFL's second largest event, that opened some eyes. And then during the bid process for the World Cup, that is what we focused on over and over and over again, was showcasing, all of Kansas City and what we have to offer. We're not a flyover city anymore. We're a destination. We have a culinary scene. We have an art scene. We boast one of the greatest museums in the world. We have a thriving cultural, district. We have incredible sports teams. We are accessible. We are affordable. We have an incredible entrepreneurial spirit here. And we just kept reiterating that over and over and over, and then really put the exclamation point on it when FIFA was in town in October of 2021, and really just showcased that spirit in a way that they could not ignore. And you have to remember the people sitting around the table were from Switzerland and Germany and Canada and South America, all over South America. And they would have never had any reason to come to Kansas City if it were not for a site visit. And so we knew, there was pressure on, but we were like, this is where we shine. Getting people to Kansas City and then showing it off is where we shine. Everybody leaves wanting to come back and wanting more. And what FIFA said at the end of the day was, Kansas City just demonstrated that they wanted it more than any other market that was bidding. So again, punching outside of our weight class, but using the assets that we have. Yeah,
we're scrappy.
Yes.
We are Midwest scrappy, y'all.
Yes.
We should be proud.
Yes.
So I have two lines of questioning, but the first one that I want to ask. So one of my big fears, I have to tell you, I'm very excited. Actually, the first thought that I had when I heard that FIFA was coming to Kansas City was, great. Now maybe people will understand that Kansas City spans 2 states. Damn it. And now when I say that I'm from Kansas City, people will know that I'm not, from Kansas, or that I'm not from Missouri or what have you. But then my second thought was, oh God, people are going to discover how amazing this city is. They're going to want to come here. Yeah. And it's not going to be as cheap, and the leadership isn't going to be as accessible, and we're going to have more traffic. Are you scared of that?
No.
Are you prepared for us to blame you if that comes to pass?
The cat is out of the bag. The cat is out of the bag. But I think that, that's why it's going to take, multiple years to plan and execute, because we have to think about all of that, right? We're contractually obligated to deliver a complimentary transportation system for the event. And while, Kansas City can boast the largest free transportation system in the country, at the end of the day, it's still not that large, right? And so we have to create.
It's a subjective sort of thing, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't worry about it. I welcome the opportunity, and I think everybody should welcome the opportunity to showcase what we all know makes Kansas City great, right? Because then you have that. It's one event. Now it's a long event. It's probably, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks, but the opportunity for generating new business, attracting talent, having repeat visitors return to Kansas City on a regular basis, right? They might not have had an excuse to come to Kansas City. Maybe they didn't have a conference that was hosted here. They've never had a reason to plan a trip. They come to Kansas City. They have an incredible experience where we're strategizing around how to showcase everything that Kansas City has to offer, not just soccer matches, but everything. And then they want to come back, right? So it's that long tail of positive economic impact that just keeps going and keeps helping us grow. But it is a challenge. And when we are thinking through our strategy, there's very much going to be like advisory councils tied to civic engagement. How do we make sure that people are kept in the loop? How do we garner input and suggestions and questions from the larger community, which again, I think makes Kansas City different from any other host city. Like we have a different opportunity here because of our size, because of the level of engagement, and because of the accessibility. And I don't think that's going to change. I think it's only going to be more collaborative.
Yeah. Well, and I love to hear that. And I think that one of the things that I found to be most wonderful, lovely, like whatever you want to call it, about Kansas City is how accessible our community resources and our community leaders are. You know, I mean, we can literally, like our mayor literally posts his phone number. You can text him, you know, and this is not new and different, but you don't see that in larger cities. And so we have a very accessible pool of talent and thought leaders that we can pull from and talk to. So talk to us about that. Like, I find it absolutely wonderful that you're worried about that community connectivity and making sure that you're bringing the community along. But talk to us about some of the mechanisms and some of the listening tactics that you're putting into place to make sure that the community is involved.
Yeah. So, and I think that the theme of our World Cup bid was uniting a region, right? So the matches will be hosted in Kansas City, but we involved not only both sides of the state line, and though it is a funny story, I still am having to train FIFA that most of the events will happen.
Two states.
They keep just saying Kansas, and when I have to go to the state of Missouri and ask for a lot of financial support, I keep telling FIFA, like, you can't just be saying Kansas. We need to just say Kansas City. You don't need to say Kansas City, Missouri. You don't need to say Kansas City, Kansas, but Kansas City, because I can't have you calling the host city Kansas,
right?
Especially when our stadium's in Missouri, but like,
well, and I mean, you have like I think there are concert venues on the Missouri side. Like, remember, you're in Missouri.
Yeah.
You know, I went to Puerto Rico not too long ago, and it was funny. Anytime I would hop in an Uber, the driver would try to talk, like, he'd be like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "From Kansas City." Kansas. And I'm like, I tried to correct him the first couple of times, and I'm like, it doesn't matter.
It's
like,
tough.
this is vapor. It does not matter at all.
Yeah.
But
another funny story I'll share about the day of the site visit was, we were very lucky that the U.S. women's national soccer team was in town playing the evening that FIFA was in town. So we got to take them out to Children's Mercy Park, and they got to attend a match and see how much Kansas City comes out for sports. But we had police escorts to escort their bus from the Lowe's in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, to Children's Mercy Park out in Wyandotte County. And they were so fascinated because, we had Missouri State troopers in front, and then they were in police cars, and then they peeled off, and like seamlessly the Kansas State troopers literally drove on their motorcycles, and they were like, did we just cross into Kansas? Like, is that what just happened? Like, did that transition just happen right in front of our eyes? And we were like, yes, welcome to Kansas. Like, that's how smooth it was. And it was funny because it was very reflective of the way that we approached the bid. And you talk about accessibility. I think one of the things that set Kansas City apart from other bidding cities is that we could get the governors of Kansas and Missouri on critical calls with FIFA, like with one phone call, because they understood, the impact that this would have on both sides of the state line. And I doubt New York or New Jersey or frankly Colorado can necessarily say the same thing. Like, they were just so willing to jump in and help and assist. And that was really, the spirit of the bid was so collaborative, and we were able to engage so many different organizations and institutions to assist with all of the massive amount of deliverables that we needed to get back to them, particularly as it relates to like human rights mitigation challenges and things like that. And so I think we're going to take that sort of spirit and that strategy that we used during the 5+ year bid process and just make sure that we're continuing to move down the same path in the planning process, which is open communication, transparency, having committees that the general public and the larger community can engage with, having a website where if there's small business owners that have concerns or don't know what to expect, like, there's going to be a portal where they can submit questions and, so that we know what is sort of concerning the larger general public? What's plaguing people? What do we need to be more clear about? What else do we need to communicate? So I just think that, again, it's unique to Kansas City, and it's going to be reflected in the way that we plan and execute and communicate out.
Yeah. Well, I love to hear that. And, to everybody in this room, I'm going to invite you on Katherine's behalf, but like, please be a part of this process. Like, this is a really stunning opportunity for our city. And your voice matters. Like, we need to hear from you. I say we, like I had anything to do with it, which I did not.
No, everybody did. Everybody had something to do with it. I mean, seriously, really, if you think about it, you mentioned the civic passion for Kansas City and the just the sort of like the general, engagement level here. It had everything to do with being successful on this bid.
Yeah. Well, I do have a question for you, and I have to tell you folks out in the audience that I was really pissed when the FIFA win was announced. This is not directed at you; it's fine. But there was a lot of backlash. I don't know if y'all saw it, like on social media, on the news. Like, people were very upset that Kansas City, this seemingly podunk city that they had never heard of.
You're talking about people outside Kansas City.
Yeah, people outside of Kansas City. Sorry.
I must have
You go onto the Twitterverse and, toxic Twitter is real. But like, I was seeing a lot of feedback from people outside of the Kansas City area, just very upset that we had won this bid. And so I want to ask you, like, I'm sure that you were listening, you were seeing that feedback. Talk to us a little bit about the response from our leadership and the folks who were in on that bid. What did that feel like?
We're talking to you, Denver, sour grapes. Here's the thing. We generated, there were a lot of bidding cities that utilized petition signatures to sort of demonstrate support from their markets to bring the World Cup to their hometowns. Kansas City had the largest social media following of all of the bidding cities. We had more signatures to our petition than any other bidding city. We took it a step further and entered into, we had youth soccer associations from surrounding states. At the end of the day, FIFA's main goal is to grow the sport of soccer, and the best way to do that is to get kids playing at a young age, right? But we worked with youth soccer associations from 9 surrounding states: Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Nebraska, Iowa. I can't list them all the way up to like North Dakota, I think. And we had them write formal endorsements letters on our behalf to FIFA. And they submitted it saying, we're backing Kansas City's bid. Like, we support this approach that they are taking of representing the entire Midwest. Denver didn't do that. They didn't endorse Denver. They didn't endorse Cincinnati. They didn't endorse Nashville, right? They endorsed Kansas City. And so I think we really did our due diligence in engaging people throughout the Midwest and around our region. Yeah. And that was 100% realized on the night of the announcement when FIFA released the social engagement numbers tied to each of the 16 cities that were announced, and Kansas City was number 1 and was far and away had more social media engagements.
Well done, Kansas City. Round of applause for all of it. Come on. Yes. Good job, y'all.
Yeah. So we didn't really have to bite back because it was demonstrated through real data and the fact that FIFA awarded us host city duties. Like, we earned it. Yeah. And if you want to complain about it,
so when they go low, we went high. Yeah. We were just like, you know what? We did the thing.
I think Denver phoned it in. I think they assumed that, that they were going to get it. Nashville had some stadium challenges that probably made their situation a little bit more challenging. But with respect to the other markets, like, I got to tell you, when we flew out to the sort of like celebratory event in New York shortly after the announcement, all of the other host cities, I mean, we were the belle of the ball. They were so excited. Now, most of them were from others, they were involved with sports. So they kind of knew Kansas City was a sports town, right? And they had probably been to Kansas City, whether it was to travel with their teams or, otherwise. So they knew Kansas City a little bit better than the general public. But we were celebrated. They knew we deserved it. they could not have been more excited for us. The collaboration with these cities since then has been incredible. And so to the other folks that, wanted to be bitter Betties about the fact that we worked harder and earned it, I say go evaluate your process and come back next time.
Yeah. Sour grapes are sour.
Yeah.
Well, so that was the unfun question. I was just really curious because I actually wrote like a little diatribe on social where I was just like, okay, world, Kansas City's awesome. Let us prove it to you, dopey jerks.
Yes.
But
and FIFA is the largest sports organization in the world. You think they're going to give a city that something that they can't handle? Like, they're not going to take that risk.
I don't think they're going to do that.
No way.
So that was my unfun question. But my fun question is, what was the most surprising good part of the whole process?
I mean, you're going to think that I really, the way that this community came together to rally around this bid was one of the most inspiring things I've ever been a part of. I mean, honestly,
did you cry?
Anytime, you're going to make me cry right now, but
I am.
Anytime I asked for support or help, whether it was from a civic organization or a nonprofit focused on some again, human rights issues that we need to be really mindful of as we work through this planning, or individuals, literally the response was yes, and what else can we do? Throughout the entire process, the way that this city showed up was just inspiring.
Yeah, really gratifying. And
Yeah.
so when I approached Katherine about this, and when I talk about Katherine about this, like I point to her as the leader, and she's very humble and it's very sweet. But I asked her, I was like, when you're on the stage, own you're awesome. Like, please do that for us, because you need to own what you have accomplished. But hey, audience, Kansas City, I don't know what camera I'm supposed to be looking at, but I want to own it. Like, we did this together. And it was it's a really powerful thing. And there are all kinds of really positive implications that are going to come down the pipeline. Economic growth and empowerment for individuals. Sports are a great unifier. It's one of the reasons that we love it so much. And so the fact is, like, we did it, Kansas City. And we had an amazing leader like this one to take us through the process. But it wouldn't have been possible without each and every one of you. And so I'm going to say thank you.
Yes.
Own you're awesome. Thank you. Own you're awesome. Talk to us about the future. We've achieved success. We see some of these really exciting things coming down the pipeline. Lots to look forward to in Kansas City. But what do you see as whether that's your future? What does that look like for Kansas City? How can we build on this growth?
Yeah. So, I mean, we need to do a really great job of producing and executing this event. And we're sort of working on the foundation right now, right? Building a foundation that is going to set us up for success. We will have to set up a completely separate nonprofit entity because of the size and scope of the project. So we're working through that. We have incredible partners at the professional sports team level, without the Chiefs and GEHA field at Arrowhead.
You did it.
Yeah, and being collaborative on that. I mean, the stuff that the Kansas City Current is doing, and I know DP's in the room.
Hey, DP. Actually, DP, where are you at, babe? Raise your hand. Say hi.
Yeah.
We have another sports leader in the house, ladies and gentlemen. So
yes,
that would be DP Taylor with the Kansas City Current.
I mean, the timing of, again, the innovation and entrepreneurship that the Longs and the ownership group of the Kansas City Current have demonstrated could not have worked better for the World Cup bid, honestly. Like, that was hugely important to that process. And I mean, obviously, the Royals, they might be displaced for a few games around the World Cup times, but they're being very collaborative. They understand the larger, benefit to being flexible with that. Sporting Kansas City, obviously, they're hugely involved in this. So, we have support from the professional teams. We have great support from the civic leaders in this city. But again, we're trying to figure out the platform from which to operationalize the planning. And so I think we have multiple tracks that we need to be focused on. And again, I'm speaking specific to World Cup right now, but we have contractual obligations to deliver this event, right? So that's kind of one track that we need to work on. And then we talked about civic engagement and making sure that we're communicating effectively and giving people resources to be able to take advantage of the fact that the World Cup is coming in 2026. So we've got sort of a civic engagement vertical. I've mentioned a couple times human rights. FIFA obviously does not have a great track record when it comes to that. The fact that they're hosting in Canada, the United States, and Mexico, they know that there's going to be a lens on them that's different than when you're hosting in Russia or Qatar. So they are being very diligent about working with host cities to make sure that everyone is very clear on some of the challenges that come with the responsibility of hosting the events. So we're gonna have a human rights advisory council, which actually Kansas City suggested setting up during the bid process, and we got high marks for that, which I'm very proud of.
Did you have a moment where you were like, damn it?
Meaning like
when they took you up on it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the other host cities were like, thanks a lot, Kansas City, but whatever.
The bar's up here, come meet us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a critically important piece. I mean, it's the biggest sporting event in the history of the world. So there's a lot of potential challenges that come with that, and we need to be really focused. So then there's that vertical. And then there's, obviously managing just the experience that people should have when they come to Kansas City, soup to nuts. So we're very focused on strategizing around how to really effectively navigate those kind of key verticals during the planning process. Yeah. I've had a lot of questions from people about like from a development standpoint, what should we be doing? What do we need to do? There's a reality that again, FIFA wouldn't have given us this opportunity if we didn't have the infrastructure in place to deliver it, or if we didn't need to just create some temporary infrastructure to deliver it. So I want to be mindful of getting the right people around the table who can help guide and answer those questions. Because that's not my area of expertise, right? Like I don't know how to guide developers. I build a hotel somewhere. I don't know. But there's experts that are accessible in Kansas City and have a vested interest. So if that becomes something that, we feel like we need to invest a little bit more time and resources in, then that's what we'll do. So I think I would ask for people to be patient, but also share feedback and provide input and ask questions, because we don't know what we don't know as we plan this process. And it would be really helpful to have that type of engagement. And start thinking like, how do we take advantage of this opportunity, through responsible development and responsible engagement, and how do we make Kansas City even better than it is right now? How do we not squander this opportunity, but also not sacrifice, our sort of beliefs and values and what we are as a city as we're planning through it. And I think there's more incredible events to come. We're bidding on the 2031 and 2033 Rugby World Cups, which, believe it or not, is the second.
Shut the front door. Are we really? I had no idea.
Oh yeah, we got asked to bid.
Who here watches rugby? Have you ever seen this amazing, massively violent sport? It's awesome.
But that's the second largest single sport event in the world.
Yeah.
Right? We're bidding on Olympic trials, U.S. gymnastics Olympic trials, and things like that. And again, the success that we've achieved through all of this collaboration only makes some of those sales pitches a little easier, right? Like we don't have to sell Kansas City as much as we do now. We can be like, yeah, we're hosting the World Cup. Boom, mic drop.
Well, and I think that what'll be extraordinarily helpful as we move even further along is like we're going to be able to prove it. Like, hey, look, we said we could do this thing. We did this thing. We did it very well, and I have every faith that we're going to pull it off admirably with leaders like you at the helm. But once we do it, nobody can take that away from us. Look at what we did. Look at what we accomplished. Speaking of that, so I'm going to ask you. I told you I was going to do this again, but I'm going to first of all say Happy International Women's Day. Woo, woo, yes, woo, woo. That's right. I was expecting more volume, but now that we have kind of set the stage for that, what I would actually like to hear is some major kudos for this lady sitting right here to my right. Thank you for everything you have done to activate around our community. You have helped us present well on a global stage. It has been incredible to watch, even as a third-party observer. But I just want to express to you on this International Women's Day that it is leaders like you and women like you that keep us progressing forward. And I'm just very, very proud to be represented by people like you.
Thank you. Right back at you, and thank all of you for being here and for your continued support as we build this out.
Yeah. Well, so next up, I believe we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we have Tammy Buckner coming up. Tammy is an innovator, one of my favorites of all time, in fact. So really, really excited for you to hear her story. But if you, Katherine, are you going to be able to stick around for a couple minutes? But definitely come up, ask Katherine questions. She's incredibly kind, a wonderful human being, in addition to being a leadership beast. So definitely do that. But if there is anything that you want to ask, don't hesitate to do so, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.